much for having me here again, so I can share with you the study I did on the Spiritist view of pregnancy. The study is based on two books mainly. So the first book is not yet translated to English, I don't believe. I'm going to just translate freely the title. It's Gestation When Souls Meet. It's by a Brazilian physician. She's an OB/GYN physician. Her name is Cristiane Assis, and she's also a Spiritist. The second book, of course, is the Spiritist book, because what is pregnancy in the Spiritist sense? It's the means for the soul to come to earth. So it's the means for reincarnation. Reincarnation is one of the pillars of Spiritism. So, of course, it would be the Codification, so the Spiritist book by Allan Kardec. This one book that I use for this study. And then The Missionaries of the Light by Chico Xavier, through Chico Xavier by the Spirit Andrea Luiz, that has a case that explains, give us an example of a reincarnation process. So they say all reincarnations are different. It doesn't mean that everything happens the way this case happened, but they brought this case to us because they said it's a pretty average case that most of us would have undergone, because the spirit that they use as an example, it was an average spirit, like most of us. So not too good, not too bad. So that was my introduction. The other thing I wanted to say is that we are not denying the physical aspects of pregnancy. So we're going to take all that as the foundation for this study. We're building upon it. So let's just have a look on the difference, or what is different between a solely physical point of view and a spiritual point of view. So the physical aspects of pregnancy, we can think that starts at preconception, right? If a person really planning pregnancy. So that includes a healthy diet, some vitamins, exercise, and for mom and dad, if they are really planning, right? And there's conception, which is the beginning of the female cells and the male cells. There is a gestation, fetus developing the womb. Once it's ready, there's birth. So we're not going to talk in details about that, we're just bringing that so we know that we are taking that into account. What we're going to bring is going to be added to it. So, the spiritual aspects of pregnancy. So in preconception care, in the spiritual side, it starts with the reincarnation planning. So even before the parents might be thinking about having a child, the spirit that's going to reincarnate, it's already planning the next life. Then the next step is the connection with the future parents. Then it comes the need of a very spiritual connection with the mother. Then the conception will happen, but this conception will happen under spiritual guidance. That's something that the earth science doesn't take into consideration. And then the gestation will happen, but it's also going to be under spiritual guidance. The birth will happen, but the reincarnation doesn't end at birth. The reincarnation will continue until the child reaches 7 years old. So it's adding a lot of complexity to the physical aspects, right? So we're going to go a little bit topic by topic, but I'm not going to exhaust each of the topics because it's a lot. It's very interesting, there's a lot of stuff. So we're starting with reincarnation planning. So going back to the codification, does Allan Kardec tell us about reincarnation planning? Yes. He asked the spirits on question 330, do spirits foresee the time for the next incarnation? And the question is, they have a feeling about it. They might not know exactly, but they have a feeling about it. So they know it will occur, but not when or how. That's in general, right? Because it all varies according with the level of evolution of the spirit. So the next thing is interesting. They ask, is the union, because the question is, does the soul is created at the same time that the body is created? I think that's where he was going to, right? Because if the spirits know about it, okay, how far ahead they know? Does the soul get created the same time the body got created? So yes. Is that union predetermined, or is it chosen at the last moment? And they say, no, it doesn't happen at the last moment. It is pre-assigned, because each spirit selects its own trials and requests to be reincarnated. So it's assigned beforehand to that battle. So now we're going to go to the book Missionaries of the Light. So all the stories that I'm going to tell is in this book Missionaries of the Light. And we start with this part of the colony. So we know the book was brought to us by the spirit André Luiz, and he was in the spiritual colony. And he was a physician while he was living on Earth, right? So he's really interested about matters of health. He goes to visit this place that is called Reincarnation Planning Institute, right? Because he's going to follow the case of our friend that's going to reincarnate. So it's a big building full of people, very active, and there he learns, why do we need to reincarnate? They explain to him, why do we need to reincarnate? Because when we are here in the physical life, we go through struggles that will help us correct, renew, restore, and perfect ourselves. So that's, if we think, why are we here on Earth? Remember this, to correct, renew, restore, and perfect ourselves.
Sounds easy.
Not a lot of work, right? So, and if it's a lot of work for us, imagine work for the soul that's trying to undergo such a task. And we don't go through it alone. There is a lot of people helping us. So all those spirits that are helping us work at the Reincarnation Planning Institute and give us guidance in this process. So once he goes in, he finds this design and planning pavilion where the physical body of the next incarnation is planned in a lot of details. So they are drawn up to the genetic level. So you can see a lot of workers with charts of lungs and brain and all that. It's very interesting. They talk about spirits that are there, going over their plans with the technicians that work there to make sure that they are having the tools they will need to fulfill their task in their new reincarnation. So the details are planned, including physical limitations. So when we have a physical limitation, it didn't happen by chance. It was planned in our chart for our new body. Why? Why do we have sometimes some physical limitations? Because they serve to guard against temptation of a lower nature. So we have a classic example from Chico Xavier of a mother that had a child that was born already with a lot of handicaps. I think it was blind and deaf. And then the child had a disease and needed to have both legs amputated. And she was really, really upset. And she came to Chico and was like, my child already has so many shortcomings. Why is this happening? So to explain, the spirits allowed them to explain to her that her child had committed suicide many times in previous incarnation. And even though in this life it had come with a lot of limitations, it was already thinking on ways to end his life. And he was going to walk through the water to drown. So that's why the spirits had put in the plan that predisposition for that disease in case it was needed. So that's another thing that I want to highlight. So even though the plan is drawn up to the genetic level, it doesn't mean our fate is predetermined before we are born. We know now, because of science nowadays, genes can be activated or deactivated depending on a lot of stimuli. So it can be the environment, it can be even our emotional status. So that predisposition in the genetic material only is going to happen according to what we do once we are here. So that's why it serves as an antidote. So in that case of that we talked about, was trying to prevent suicide. Also an antidote to vanity, acting against self-centeredness. So look how many people working there. So there was like hundreds of technicians that were like experts in embryology and biology that were there to guide the future lives of the spirits that were reincarnated. And then, just building up on that, they say our existence is not a matter of chance, and our physical limitations is not a matter of chance. Why? Because it happens in accordance to divine justice. In accordance to divine justice, each one will receive according to his deeds. And again, those charts, they were actually walking around with little scrolls rolled up of charts, and Andrea Luiz was really curious about it. And then they explained that they were the plans that were drawn up that are adequate for meeting the reincarnated spirit goals, depending on the work that they will be assigned in the material life. So let's see if we have backing up in the codification for what Andrea Luiz brought us, right? So Allan Kardec asks the spirits, is the spirit allowed to choose the body to enter? Or does it choose just the kind of life that we lead? What do you think? So they said, it may choose the body too, since the imperfections are also trials. So Allan Kardec had already gotten from the spirits that answer that later on Andrea Luiz brought to us with more details. So I like to always have the backing of the codification so we can see that these teachings from Andrea Luiz are in accordance with it. But why does it say may choose? Because the choice doesn't always depend on the spirit, but it's often allowed. So this allowance or not will depend on the level of evolution of the spirit. Because you wouldn't, for example, now let's compare like a 2-year-old. You wouldn't give a knife for a 2-year-old to cut up the food to help you cook, right? But you might give it to like 10-year-old. So it's the same. They will give to you according to your capabilities. Because if you're not involved, you might not choose wisely your next reincarnation, and it's not going to help you correct, renew, restore, and all that those goals that they have, that God has for us. Okay, so now the body is planned, you're granted, okay, you have your scroll with your chart, your plan to incarnate. Now the spirit needs to connect with the future parents. So in our case, so let's go back to the Spirit's book and see if that's true. If the spirits in the family have any connection, right? So Allan Kardec asks, do our family ties extend beyond our present life? Because you may think, how does this child know the mom and dad if they haven't been born in that family yet, right? And the spirits answered, they must. So the family ties extend beyond our present life. Why? Because we live many times, and usually our many lives are with the same people around us, our family. And through those many incarnations, you have a relationship that forms from previous life. So then they were trying to figure out, I really love Allan Kardec because he's very didactic, right? And then he always digs deeper. So he was like, okay, so why sometimes children are similar to their parents, right? Because now we know we have the body from the body, but they get a part of the spirit from the parents, so they're similar to them. So he asks, do children inherit psychological characteristics from their parents? And the spirit says no, because they have different souls. And the spirit doesn't come from the spirit. But, so why do we explain then the similarities? The spirits who share the same attitudes and tendencies are drawn to each other. So it's like your friends, right? Your friends are similar to you because you hang out with people that like the same thing that you like. You like going to the places that you like. So that's the thing. Same thing with spirits. So let's go back to our case. This guy here is the spirit that's going to reincarnate. The family there is the future mother, future father, and future big brother. Those three spirits are the spirits that are helping this reincarnation process. But they are there because there was some problems happening. I'm not going to tell you the story because you're going to need to read the whole thing because a lot of stuff. But you can see that the spirit doesn't look very excited right now, right? So the mentor spirits approach the family, right? And they see that the environment wasn't very friendly and was mostly because of the father. The father was going through some issues because that spirit was trying to approach them and he was not very accepting of him. So the good spirits use the older child to talk to the parents and touch the father's heart. So we can see that the father got emotional after listening to his son. So the good spirits were able to achieve something, right? So then, before going to bed, they pray. All the good spirits are there because they still have some more work to do in order for the reincarnation of this spirit to be possible. So once they are sleeping, they're going to meet with the good spirits. So this mentor spirit is helping the future father see the reincarnating spirit in a different way and work out some issues. And they're able to get them to get close again to each other. And you can see that it looks like something semi-material was actually blocking that connection between them. And it was broken up. So now they were able to achieve this connection. Another very interesting thing is that, okay, they are a couple, husband and wife, they're together. Why, if they were having relations, why couldn't a baby come about, right? Because if he has male cells and she has female cells, why couldn't a baby come about? His negative thought pattern, they explain in the book, were affecting the DNA of his sperm cells. So the reincarnation would not going to be possible, even though if you would go in a petri dish and put the egg and the sperm together, because he was damaging his fertility by his negative thought patterns. So that's why the intervention of the good spirits were needed. So I think it's amazing on the level of detail that this happens. And that connection happens over a period of time. It's not just one day. The reincarnating spirit had been there trying to approach the parents many times. That's why he was kind of like head down because he was upset he couldn't get it. They had to call the help of the good spirits to come. So it took some time. And during this period, there was actually a process of fluid connection between the parents and the reincarnating spirit. As the connection intensified, the reincarnating spirit would lose contact with the spiritual sphere. So it's like a transition period, right? Because wouldn't it seem like abrupt for you to be in the spirit realm? Now you're going to reincarnate to connect you to your parents. So it's a gradual process. And why? Why does this need to happen? So that the parent spirit body of that reincarnated spirit can regain its plasticity in order to enter life on the flesh. So there was this connection with both parents, but there is a special connection that needs to happen with the mother. Why? Because it's gonna be a big flesh connection, so you need a big spiritual connection, right? They're gonna share a physical body. So as Sigismund was there at the future parent house, another day after they had solved the situation between the parents, and another group of spirits came in, spirits that work specifically in helping with the building of a new physical body, and they're called constructor spirits. They were magnetizing his body, so remember he was losing connections with the spiritual realm, so those little white pieces that look like coming off. We were magnetizing his spiritual body. So what? So it could shrink. So it could connect with the mother's spiritual body. And with that spirit was losing a lot of mental clarity. And they explained that the level that this happens depends on the level of evolution of the spirit. So some level of the spirit, they actually go to like a sleepy state once they do that. And they're not gonna come back to their full mental clarity until they're like teenager, because we saw the reincarnation doesn't finish when we are born. We go through the whole period of childhood for the 7 years. So once the reincarnating spirit had achieved this small form, it was given to the mother. So the other very interesting thing is like, look how many people are there, right? People say, we are alone when we are born and we are alone when we die. No, we are not. So they said a prayer to give this very spiritual baby to the mother. The mother, because she was already pretty receptive, right, from the beginning. She wanted to receive the child on her knees, and the father was there too. Over 100 friends were there, and they say it was a beautiful moving scene. So these flowers that are coming down were actually higher evolved spirits that were coming that even Andrea Luiz could not see them. So all they could see, it was like flowers, like a crown of flowers. It's very beautiful, very touching description. If you want to read it, I highly recommend it. The other part that's very beautiful. So now we learn their names. The mother is called Raquel. The child is called Sigismund. And the father is called Adelino. So once they said the prayer, she received his very spiritual form. She pressed him so strongly to her heart and so lovingly that he connected to her like a flower to a stem. The one who would be flesh of her flesh was from now on soul of her soul. I think it's beautiful because it's such a beautiful way to describe it, like a flower to a stem. It's actually an attachment, a connection that happens between the mother's spirit and the future child's spirit. Alright, so now we have that. Such a long way, right? We don't even have conception yet, and all this work has been done. So now conception is going to happen. So they bring that chart that they developed in the spiritual realm in order to make sure that when the embryo forms, they are following the plan that was drawn. But again, we are not taking away the biology, right? Biology laws. The fetal modeling and development obey physical laws. However, in all cases, elements of help from the spirit plane coexist with these laws in accordance with the evolutionary or evolutive plans. So there is the biology laws, but there is also the spirit plane happen. So conception is going to happen. Do you think 100 people were there when it was happening? No, they say their presence is not necessary at the time of the couple reunions because, and that's very something to be aware of, because in well-founded homes, that moment is sublime and inviolable. So it depends on the environment where you are. So if it's a loving environment, a couple connected in love, you're gonna have your privacy. But if it's a different environment, you might not. And then you might have 100 spirits there, which is not gonna be those good spirits, it'll be different ones. And he also explains from that, you know, and the naturalist was a physician, right? You know that fertilization doesn't take place right away. It takes a few hours, so they have time, right? They don't need to be right there in the bed. So after the parents are asleep, they come in to do their work. So he is the spirit who studied the plan to know all the genetic material that is needed to fulfill that drawn up chart. So he can see the chromosomes on the moving male germ cells as he presided over the preliminary work of determining the gender of the body that would form. But not only the male cell, right? The female cell is important too. So he had studied her DNA because you only have one usually, right? The DNA of the maternal egg, and then identify the male cell most suitable and fix magnetic powers on it. With this magnetic support, that sperm cell was able to overcome its competitors and get to the egg. And it's very interesting because this book was written, I think, in 1948, something like that. And recently, in the 1990s, there has been a study done on how is the sperm chosen to arrive at the egg. Because we always thought that it was the quickest, the strongest sperm that would arrive at the egg. And in biology studies, they found out that there is a vibration from the egg that attracts the sperm cell. So they don't know that this vibration is helped by the spirits yet, right? But now we can see that this was done many years before, and they already talked about that. So both forces now form one, turn into a very tiny spokes of light. So, and they also saw that at the moment there is fertilization of the egg, science has seen that there is like a spark that is identified. And they say that over that microscopic globe of light, latent life begins to stir. So then there will be all the development of the baby, right? So they had to be very careful to make sure that the right sperm was going to meet with the egg, because from now on, the physical laws are going to take effect, and the genetic material is going to form that embryo. And it's dependent on the mom's and dad's chromosomes. But not only that. So now we're going to add the Spiritist view. The mother's mental models affect the embryo development. So what does it mean? The mother's positive or negative thoughts. So for example, if the mother really did not want to get pregnant, and she might be like rejecting so much this embryo that's forming, that the mental forces will affect the development of the baby, and then that can fail. The spirit's own action, the spirit that's reincarnating on action. Because we saw Sigismundo, he was a little bit upset that the father didn't really want to be close to him, right? I didn't tell, but once they were working on his spirit shrinking, he was having some doubts. He was like, oh, am I going back to life on earth? I made mistakes before. How about if I make mistakes again? I had worked so much on the spiritual realm. He had worked so much. That's why he earned the merit of all this assistance. And what's going to happen with my work? So he was going through some doubts himself, but the friendly spirits told him, no, you can do it. We're going to be with you. We are here with you. So he could change that. But if he didn't have the support from all the spirits, the spirit might just be like, this, I don't want to do this. And it's too much. I want to leave. and that can make a pregnancy fail. The assistance of the constructor spirits. In the book, there is other cases after where it wasn't that easy for the construction spirits to help, because it will depend on the environment that you are in, those spirits are able to help you. So, for example, if the mother is a drug addict and she's always surrounded by people that are similar to her, it makes that environment really hard for the construction spirits to do their work. And then even if they're really trying, something might not go as it should. Also, the spirit friends that visit. We're going to see friends from the reincarnating spirits, friends from the mother, friends from the father. They will come visit to help support the healthy development of the pregnancy, to give good energies for the embryo development. So, what type of friends are going to come to visit? So that all is added to the genetic part. But let's see the spirit's book, if they say the same thing. When does the spirit unite with the body? The union begins at conception, and it's complete only with birth. From the moment of conception, the spirit assigned to that body is united by the pair spirit, which brings spirit and body closer and closer as the moment of birth approaches. So, as they're getting closer and closer, the mental clarity of the reincarnating spirit gets less and less, because time to be born is approaching. Or they could be sleeping, like the cases that we talked about before. Alright, so now the good spirits were there every night working on the development of that embryo. Cell by cell, they're working on each cell to make sure that would happen in accordance with that plan. And even the construction spirits, which are specialized in that work, sometimes during the first stages of formation of the most important eggs, they would stop and pray, asking Jesus' blessing for their work, and they would see that a sparkling light would come from above, pouring over the bedroom, encouraging their actions. To see how it was important. They also had magnetically sealed her bedroom, so no disturbance could happen to their work. It's very delicate work. So even good friends could not come visit. They tried, they couldn't come. And the most important time was the first 21st days, because after that, the embryo reaches its basic configuration. So until then, the mother mostly, even at sleep, needed to stay close to her. Because we saw before that during sleep, we are able to go away from our body, but they would maintain her there with them. So on the 21st night, they opened the door, and then she could have visitors. So Andreas compares the work of the construction spirits during the fetal development to the work of materialization. Materialization is when a discarnate spirit is able to be seen by us. For example, what happened when Jesus resurrected, right? So he didn't come back in a body like ours. He came back with a different body that was temporary because he was materialized. So their work, the technicians' work, relied on help from the mother, who functioned as the medium, because when you are having materialization, you need help from the medium to be able to provide for that materialization. You also need help of magnetic resources from people around it. And in the case of the gestation, you need help for magnetic resources from the father. So the father has a direct and positive impact in that gestation. So we saw how the father was important before, because if the father didn't accept the spirit that was trying to reincarnate, there would be no body development, and you need the support of the father for the pregnancy too, for these magnetic resources. And they go in more detail saying, I think that's the best that he could come to explain to her this comparison because it would be impossible to describe the caring details involved in the construction of the incarnate Spirit's new body. And this chapter is called Watch Care. And I think that kind of summarizes. So they were watching over her and caring for her all through that period. So here are the friends visiting. That's the mom of the baby. So during sleep, when they were able, so now she could go outside because the critical moment had passed, right, and received her friends. She was happy and relieved, and the Spirit was relieved too. Imagine that. We get fearful and anxious as incarnate when we know there is life being developed inside of him. The spirits were true because they were concerned that that could fail. So once they managed to undergo those 21st days, they were very excited that at least they had, met that milestone. But they explained that the baby could not leave, so the spirit that was incarnate could not leave the company of the mother. They were attached, right? So she had to carry him. So all the friends were there, hopeful and happy. They would give her care and tenderness, and they would get elements from nature to support not only spiritually but physically her health, so this baby could be reborn. So also they say again, the fetal organization will depend on the habits of the couple. So in this case, they were having honorable habits, and the fetal organization happened normally. The mother had to make true organic sacrifices. So she had to make sure she was eating healthy and not smoking, not taking alcohol, all that we know. So like we said from the beginning, we're not taking away all the physical aspects. We are just building upon it, right? They are important too. But each night, their loved ones would come to visit them and take them on those spirit excursions. And who are coming? The spirits that were thankful to the incarnating spirit, mostly because, like we told you, Sigismund had done a lot of work in the spiritual realm while he was waiting for his new incarnation. And they would help not only him, they were his friends, but they were coming not only to help him, but the home and the parents too. So then it comes time to birth. Let's see what the Spirit's book has to say about it. So, Allan Kardec asks, at the moment of birth, does the spirit have all its faculties intact? So, does the spirit regain all its faculties? No. They return gradually with the growth of the body's organs, which makes total sense, right? We couldn't say that infant's body would be able to perform at the same level of our body. That would be against the laws of nature. And Spiritism never goes against the laws of nature. They tell us if anything that's in the spiritual literature goes against the laws that you know on earth, discard what the spirits brought to you, because they might not be very educated spirits. Because they never go against it. It has to make sense to us. So this makes sense. The baby doesn't have all its facts, the spirit that's incarnated. They will need to learn how to use all the new body's instruments. So it comes back little by little. So let's see in our story, how did it happen? She had all this help from the spirits, right? She might have given birth like very fast. So the night before, they come back because they wanted to be there to provide assistance to the mother. But it took prolonged efforts. She had to do her work, not because all the spirits were there helping that, it was easy. But after all her efforts, the incarnated spirit was reborn. And then the good spirit said, all right, our initial work is completed. So all this journey up to here was just the beginning of the work on the reincarnation of our friend. The future work, the full take place after 7 years. So not all those spirits are going to stay, but one spirit, the mentor spirit of the reincarnating child, is going to stay, making sure that everything happens in accordance to the plan during those 7 years. So let's see if the Spirit's book says the same thing. Allan Kardec asks, why must the spirit go through infancy, right? If the question before was saying the spirit cannot use its faculties, why does it need to go through that? The purpose of incarnation is to improve the spirit. A spirit is more impressionable during childhood, when the impressions it receives are more easily molded into its personality, and therefore promotes its progress. So there is a reason. They don't make us to not have our faculties just because it's a punishment. No, it's actually an opportunity to receive teachings to improve ourselves. To that end, everyone entrusted with the education of a child should contribute. So when we see a child, if we work with a child, if we have a child in the family, we have a responsibility to give what? Good moral examples. Because that is how we improve the spirit. Morally, we're looking for moral improvement, right? But he asks again, because he wanted to be sure, why does the character of young people, especially as they go through adolescence, change? Is that the spirit that changed? No. The spirit starts to become themselves again. They start to regain that self-awareness, revealing how they were before incarnating. So the tender nature of the young makes them more pliable, more moldable, like they said before, more open to the advice. This way, tendencies toward wrongdoing are redirected and faulty characters are gradually reformed. So it's this molding opportunity, this opportunity to help our fellow spirits to grow. And then they say, very important, God entrusts this moral modeling to the parents as a duty, a sacred mission, and they will have to give account to how they perform that mission. So, the spiritual aspects show us this many more layers of complexity that play a role in when a child is being born and a new life that's coming. And not only for the child, but also for the parents in many different levels. So it's a big journey. We went from the reincarnation planning all the way to 7 years old. So it's not to take the merit from the physical part. The physical part is incredible. I went to medical school because I thought human body was amazing, and everything that we are able to do. But it's just one part of it. And we should always be thankful and remember all the support that we receive. Many times we might feel like we're alone. We might feel like, why am I here? Why is my life, what am I to do with my life? And those times we need to remember all this work, all these friends that did a lot for us to be where we are. So I wanted to finish with this, and with this phrase that says, God bless our incarnation and all those who lovingly contributed to it. Thank you.